Miami Dolphins lose to the Houston Texans 20-12, drop to 6-8. The pipe dream that was a playoff run, I believe, officially over at this point. They are 2 games back of the Los Angeles Chargers for that last wildcard spot with only 3 games to play here. And Tua, I don't know what you do, man, because in another gotta have it sort of game, bad Tua came out. And the thing is, like, bad Tua is just like, he never wins games. There's never like Tua fought through an ugly game and ended up like,
no, if it's bad Tua, it's a bad game and you lose.
Disaster. 29-40, 196 yards, 1 touchdown, but 3 picks. PFF had him, the early PFF grades, had him with a 32.3 passing grade. What do you think of the early PFF grades, by the way, that they're posting now online? Would you have made that decision?
I like the transparency. I like the transparency. I think the PFF grade stuff, like the common criticism is like everything's behind closed doors. No one really understands them. They feel like worse than Madden grades sometimes in terms of how you even understand how you get to that number. I think the transparency is actually smart. I actually think it's a good decision.
I just know the grading and know that how much it changes.
No, it changes. It changes. No, it changes. I think that it flips pretty aggressively. You could see that 32.3 become a 56.6 with the 0 to 100 algorithm. Yeah, it could be a lot of things. Now, like the early sample, you mentioned some of the pressure numbers. I'm sure you're getting those too. Like some of that stuff I think is actually super valuable.
Yeah, those can be semi-accurate. Derek Stingley, massive game though. 2 picks in this one. Both were in man coverage on Tyreek Hill, which is like, that doesn't happen much.
Let me talk this Dolphins offense. Tua for me is obviously going to be a part of the Miami Dolphins franchise for quite some time. He got some money. He's going to be the starter next year, starter for the next few years. Mike McDaniel, I think, given just where the Miami Dolphins have been with head coaches recently, like and the highlights of what the Mike McDaniel experience has been, I don't think you can look in the mirror and say we can move on from him. A guy who's scored 70 points in a game, a guy who's like introduced the cheat motion into the NFL. Like he has clearly shown he can build an offense, though very limited and specifically fine-tuned to his skill set. He's built an offense that can have success in the NFL with Jalen Waddle healthy, with Tyreek Hill healthy, with the Jonnu Smith type. I don't know. Like for me, you probably can't move on from him. I guess I don't know what the Miami Dolphins do. Invest in the offensive line, invest in the defensive line. Like, do you look at defensive coordinator again? Obviously, the Fangio stuff didn't work out, but the defense doesn't look all that good this year either. It feels like the Miami Dolphins, they can't win a big game. They can't win late in the season. They haven't won a playoff game in 22 years. It's the longest active drought without a playoff win in the league. And I don't know if I know the obvious answer. Like, they need changes, and I don't know what they are.
It's difficult because you've really tied your horse to this wagon that is a quarterback that's one hit away from like disaster, right? And I saw
fragile in every sense of the word, not just from
when he went head first on the third down. I think everyone was just like, "Huh." It's like, what are you doing to it? Get down.
In the same game, Grant DuBose had to get carted off the field for a very scary hospital ball from Tua, by the way. Hospital ball that led to a big collision. They took off his jersey and shoulder pads. The dude was on a cart. It was a scary, scary day for this game. And like, it's impossible to ignore that part of this, the prayer circle. With what the Miami Dolphins feel like they're in a prayer circle every single week for this to work. Like, I am worried that there aren't clear answers to their problems, and they're gonna end up just banging their head. Not to like hit on this too much, but like they're just gonna keep on banging their head against the wall, trying to make this herky jerky, Tua dependent, clean pocket dependent offense work with Mike McDaniel. And I just don't know if they ever get over the hump with it.
And McDaniel, for as much as I think you would go to war for that guy if he was an OC, he has some major red flags in his profile for being the head coach and face of the organization, right? That are like very evident when things go south. And that's just like, that's a head coach that you can see teams giving up on, right? As opposed to
here's what I'll say about the Mike McDaniel thing is that Matt LaFleur, who I know you well, no, or is it Mike LaFleur? No, it's Matt LaFleur. Matt LaFleur had the Jordan Love injury in Sao Paulo on a Friday, where the entire plane ride back, they didn't know how long Jordan Love was going to be out. You could argue that a lot of people wanted to put the fork in the Packers season right then and there. Malik Willis coming in to be the starter. If you polled,
people did. I got odds on the Packers to make the playoffs that were like plus 200.
If you polled like 100 NFL media people, how good is Malik Willis? They rank him in the quarterbacks. They probably rank him in the 60s. And he was still able to win games scrappily, building an entirely new offense and running the ball. Well, it's like compare what LaFleur did when Jordan Love went down to what Mike McDaniel did when Tua went down. When Skylar Thompson's playing some of the worst football I've ever seen. Stoop Huntley, not the answer. They still had Jalen Waddle healthy. They still had – look what Liam Cohen did. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin go down in the same game, and this offense has managed to stay afloat. There's a difference between reasons and excuses. The reasons the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense was still successful without Godwin and Evans is because they funneled the ball to Kate Otten. They found the ball to Bucky Irving. With the Miami Dolphins, it feels like excuses are often used with the 2 injury stuff and all this other shit. Like I'm over it. I personally feel like this team has to be better. They're too talented of a football team to not have a playoff win in the entire. Now they're going to finish without a playoff win the entire Mike McDaniel era so far.
The other thing, though, and from a team building perspective, they kind of went all in last year. And they had that stretch after, what was it after? That they just didn't have first round picks or didn't have from 2022, 2023, they didn't have a single first round pick. They just weren't drafting people. So right now on this roster, there's no one that they're not paying, right? Like there's not a lot of young talent. Now they hit hard on Chop Robinson this year's draft, which was necessary, but they did not, you can't go a 2-year stretch with just adding no talent in the draft to your roster. They added one guy, Devon Achane, over that span. It's just that's tough for anyone to absorb. And so they kind of went all in for that run, which never materialized. And they're kind of paying for that in their cap situation. You see it along the offensive line. They had Jack Carman out there on their offensive line. Jack Carman, Bengals legend, is not someone you want to be starting in your roster.
Bengals legend, more like Cincinnati legend.
Yeah, dude,
he made some plays in the Cincinnati.
What was that one bar in OTR?
I don't remember it, but
clutch. He was a clutch legend, truly.
He was known at some Cincinnati bars for the wrong reasons, and now he's starting offensive line for the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah. What do you think he's doing in Miami on a weekend? Do you think if he's going to town in Cincy?
Let's talk about it. This is how I view the roster.
That's another thing, though.
It's like you go ahead.
Like teams like Vegas, teams like Miami, it's just it's hard to get 23-year-olds to be
it's true
to develop in those places, right?
The bigger worry with Vegas is that it's never a home game because every single away team's we might as well go to Vegas. I felt that a lot this year. It feels like the first few years in Vegas as a Raiders fan, it's like I haven't heard a home crowd in a long time. It doesn't feel that way in Vegas. With Miami, if you were going to look at, I think about this roster building a lot like trying to stretch a long weekend in South Beach where every answer when you're feeling you're feeling like you're wearing down is a Red Bull. And you're like, oh, I'll get another Red Bull. Oh, maybe another Red Bull vodka. Okay, I'm actually kind of waning. We're on this 30th, 40th hour. I might get another Red Bull. They need a burrito from Chipotle quick. You need Robert Hunt back. You need this interior offensive line better. You need tackles that can stay healthy. You need a running game they can't run the ball on 3rd and 1, Mike. I don't know if you saw in this game, it was 2nd and 2. They try to run the ball stuff in 3rd and 2. Then they're going deep to Jalen Waddle. They're trying to hit this timing route to Tyreek Hill. They can't run the ball in short yardage situations. They struggle in the red zone all year. It feels like this offense is super streaky, depending on if the defenses can be physical or not. Against physical defenses, what you saw with Houston today, this team struggles to score points.
Yeah, it is. To go back to my point though about the location, I think it's real, and you see it honestly more in college.
Yeah,
with why does Miami, Florida, the university consistently struggle to develop guys, but North Dakota State is elite at it. It's the places where there's nothing to do besides football. Green Bay, Wisconsin, where you can't get into anything. It's sometimes those are easier to develop young talent in.